is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, we have for you the breakdown of Canelo versus Terence Crawford. That is what we're going to be getting into, that historic fight. And just so we get out the way, I had it 116, 112, Terence Crawford. And that for you guys is this week's weigh-in. Let's get right into it. So if we really get on this Terence Crawford Canelo fight. Woo! First and foremost, congrats to Terence Crawford getting that history. That was his third undisputed weight class. Third. So in boxing, you don't see that often. You really don't. And I'm going to get you some more stuff on Crawford. So that we could see more and more. 3 times. So junior lightweight, welterweight, and now super middleweight. That's crazy. Terence Crawford. 3 straight weight classes. I mean, not straight, but 3 weight classes. That's monumental. That's historic that Terence Crawford has been able to undispute 3 weight classes. We talk about in combat sports, they're trendsetters. And we've seen these across the time. UFC even had one. Many of you might not want to agree, but Conor McGregor was a trendsetter. He wanted to be a champ. Now everybody does it, the thing to be champ. We got trendsetters here. Terence Crawford is undisputed. Now he's undisputed for what is the 3rd time in his career, and you wonder if he's going to set a trend here. Are you going to see more and more boxers want to become undisputed in multiple weight classes, more than just one? I understand it's hard. It's not easy. But Crawford has done it, and we talked about this. The true craftsmanship of Terence Crawford was going to be the difference in that fight, and it was the difference. Like, Terence Crawford was punched his way through. He boxed his way through a very well fight, and you could tell that was typical Crawford. That was typical Crawford, that fight, and he looked good. He looked real good going through the fight like that. Looked really good. Terence Crawford looked really good going back and forth through that fight like that. So I think that's a really good thing for Terence Crawford to be able to go through and do stuff like that, and to be able to put himself in a position to win a fight like that, and then to go ahead and beat Canelo when, you got to give Canelo some credit here. This is a fight that, he didn't really run from it. This is a fight that, he set it up, he was ready to go, and that was it. And I think that this tells a true tale to how Canelo is, that you went in this, what was going to be a hard fight, and you lost. And I think the losses were fueled by, okay, you're getting on stages and you're pushing back and forth with guys, and some guys take that stuff differently. Some guys take it where they want to win, like the same way when Canelo and Caleb Plant got in there and Caleb Plant tried to clock him. He took that personal. And what happened to Caleb Plant? Obviously it's not a similar situation here, but now we're talking Canelo got into an event and into a fight, and it didn't kind of go the way he thought. And that was because, Terence Crawford was truly boxing a different fight. He wasn't standing in front of him. And when you look at Canelo's corner, Eddie Ronaldez. Eddie Ronaldez, you could see multiple times, they knew they were down. They knew that sometimes you could see him say, hey, we need this. We need this. You know, we need this. You know, they kind of figured they didn't have it because Crawford came in there and really did his thing. He stayed in there. He stayed poised. He stayed to his game plan, and it actually worked. You know, it worked. He went into his game plan. And he did what he had to do, and it worked. And it worked for many of reasons because when you get into a fight like that and you do what you got to do, the difference here is that there's a lot that can get done. There's a lot that needs to get done, you know. And in that, you know, I felt that everything Crawford needed and wanted to do was done correctly. You know, I think that Crawford came in there as an underdog, not a huge underdog, but an underdog, and you know, and he went in there and he did exactly what he had to do, and now he's undisputed, his third weight class. So when you see things like that, it's just like it's wholesome boxing. To see boxing like that, history like that, where you know everybody talked about David Benavidez beating Canelo, and obviously Canelo's lost it, but everybody talked about David Benavidez beating Canelo and putting down Canelo and saying, "Oh, that's it, Canelo's done." This, that. Terrence Crawford came in here and showed exactly what he wanted to do. Now, this is the question we're all going to want to know. And I say this because it hasn't been asked, but I'm sure somebody will ask it if I don't answer it. Would Jake Paul have done that? And I'm going to break it for you. I don't think Jake Paul would have got in there and been able to do what Crawford did. Because what Crawford did was what Lamont Roach did. Look, we're going to go back to Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach, what Lamont Roach did. Lamont Roach did a good thing. Crawford went in there and did a Lamont Roach and beat him and said, "Hey, everybody think Canelo gonna win the fight? Who? No." So the difference here is that I don't think Jake would have done all of that. Now Jake would have had a good fight, but I don't think Jake would have done that. Now it's possible he could have. I'm not saying it's impossible, but he could have gone in there and done that. But after what we saw in that Chavez fight, I don't think we have that type of Jake right now. But you know, let's see. Like I said, let's see how this Tank Davis goes. Do we kind of get a little bit of that old Jake Paul? And then when we go from there, then we may understand if we do or don't. But nonetheless, it's not this ain't no Jake Paul episode for today. This is that Terrence Crawford epi. So really, you know, we look at this in a way that we say, hey, Terrence Crawford did something that we didn't think many others could have done. You know, the could have done. They can, but could they have done it? Is it likely thing? And that's where we're going to say Crawford went in there. He did exactly what many didn't think. There was a lot of them saying, oh, Crawford don't got this. Crawford don't got this. Crawford don't got this. I wanted Crawford to win that fight, and Crawford won the fight. Like, fairly simple. I said it all on the podcast. The true craftsmanship of Terrence Crawford was going to be a problem. The accuracy of Terrence Crawford was going to be a problem for Canelo. You could see early rounds, in the first 5 early rounds, you could see Canelo did not want to trade blows because he knew that Terrence Crawford, that's why he beat Earl Spence, because he's so good at the counter attack that when he was facing Earl Spence couldn't really grasp it. That's sort of what happened here. That Canelo wasn't really trading blows because Terrence Crawford is really good at counter, and the counters that he was doing when Canelo was trying to trade blows was just a clear indicator that Terrence Crawford was comfortable, very comfortable. Then you could tell in the Canelo corner, they very well tried to coach Canelo to this and say, hey, we got to start getting some rounds. We got to do something here. And it wasn't there. Terrence Crawford was very well showing very clearly that this was going to be his fight. It was going to be his fight. He went in there wanting to win. He came out with belts. He came out undisputed. And, you know, with all that being said, that tells you to a true testament that Terrence Crawford, he means business. He means business, you know. And can't wait to see what his belts will look like when they come in because, you know, this was something I guess I found really funny. Guys were posting on Twitter, oh, that was such a nice thing, Terrence Crawford. Obviously, I'm not going to pull up the tweet because I'd have to look for it, but they posted on Twitter, oh, such a nice thing Terrence Crawford did. And everybody's commenting, oh, he gave Canelo his belts back. Hey, fans of the weigh-in, I'll give you the inside secret. Those are always still Canelo's belts. So the way that works is guy wins the fight, you get the other guy's belts to photograph and to do whatever, to sit on media, whatever you got to do. And after the fight, the commission gives them back to the loser because those are still his belts, and they order the champion his belts. The only time you don't see that is if it's more of a vacant belt situation where you're both fighting for a vacant. Then no, you more than well are going to get it that night, and you don't have to order it. But in this situation, no, Canelo got his belts back, and everybody was like, "Oh, such a nice thing Terrence Crawford did." He's supposed to. Those aren't his belts yet. They order his belts. That's kind of why, if you saw him on Monday Night Football, he was at the Raiders game. You didn't see any belts because they got to order his belts. Obviously, he could have took his other undisputed belts, but he didn't. They have to order his belts, his super middleweight belts. So that's why he doesn't have any right now. They don't order those the night of the fight because they do them with the guy's silhouette. They put the event where he won them. They all that stuff. And the Ring magazine, they put stuff on there. They engrave some stuff on there too, but they have to order a lot of those belts. It's and even the WBC, you get to do it how you want it with your guys on there. So all of that is just they got to order it, and he'll get his undisputed belts, but they got to order it, and that's something that they were saying Crawford did not why, but Crawford did a nice thing giving the belts back, and he's supposed to. Those aren't really his belts, and that's just kind of the inside tip that those aren't Crawford's belts. He won them, yes, but those are more or less. Those are more or less. Those are more or less Canelo's belts. And that's why he gave him back because they're still Canelo's belts. So that was a neat, nice thing that the people were like, oh, it's a neat, nice thing. Canelo, Crawford gave him his belts back. They're gonna order Crawford's belts. Crawford doesn't get those belts, and that's something I really wanted to address really fairly, that they were going on about Crawford giving the belts back and all of that. So I just wanted to address that those aren't really Crawford's belts. That's what I wanted to, get on the pod and say, let you know that those aren't really Crawford's belts. They're going to order his. So Crawford's going to get his belts ordered for him. And that's why I wanted to address that as best as possible, that they're going to order Crawford's belts. And that's what yeah, it was I got you. Championship round. It said Terrence Crawford gave Canelo his belts back, and that was their tweet. And I believe that's where it was. I'm looking through some of these comments. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and nobody could have a soluble answer. They were even asking. They appeared to be asking. They appeared to be asking Gronk. Gronk on X says the video appears to be edited or strategically for humor. So Gronk. He says him giving the belts back is likely a post-fight joke by Gronk, the AI of X, and they always give the belts back because it's not still. And thankfully, somebody commented and told them, "Hey, this is," and a lot of people started commenting saying, "No, no, that he's supposed to give them back," but it was really like crazy that championship round says Terrence Crawford gave Canelo his belts back in a handshake, like, and then it led people to be like, "Oh, why would he?" You know, I kind of think on their part they should have kind of they should have kind of been a little more, hey, because I feel like it's ceremonial. They do it to every boxer. They do it. They just don't always film it. You know, for Terrence Crawford, after he was done with everything, walking around, pictures, this, that, Canelo was already on his way up by the what seemed to be the press conference. You know, and that's kind of why you had to really, well, not really press conference, but Canelo was Canelo was very well up there with a lot of the press at the time, and that's where they were getting ready to do press conference, or they were in the middle of it. Oh no, here we go. Oh, never mind, never mind. I give championship round some credit here. Uh they say Terrence Crawford revealed why he handed Canelo his belts back. Those are his titles. I got a ton of respect for Canelo. I wanted to be the one to give him his. I wanted to be the one to give him back his belts. I didn't want my team to hand him back his belts. So I guess they're like kind of, but you're not spinning the story right. Those are like Terrence Crawford said. Those are his belts. He's supposed to get him back, and that's something where I think that's a good thing that but they just didn't know, and it's okay to not know, but if you're a accredited media source here, championship round, you're up here, you post everything, you're doing a good thing, and you're posting stuff, and you're a media. You gotta make sure that when you say something, you provide yourself available to either provide an answer in your comment section or some way. Don't just have your people saying, "Oh wow, that was a nice thing." He didn't have to do that. Well, yeah, he did. Those are his belts. Typically, yeah, like he said, the team will walk up, hand it to another team member. But Crawford wanted to do it himself. He has a ton of respect for him, and I feel like, hey, you know, that's one thing you gotta kind of look at and say, hey, you gotta kind of figure out what's going on there, and say, hey, this is truly what's going on, not whatever everybody's trying to garfunkel up of a story. He is supposed to give the belts back. Those are still Saul Canelo Alvarez's belts. However anybody wants to draw it, those are Canelo's belts. That's why they're being given back, and that was something I wanted to address here before I get a comment, because I know a lot of the wrestlers and some of the wrestlers and a lot of the I would say some amateur boxers don't know that. Some, I wouldn't say all, but very few people who might have just started might not know that. And I figured it was going to be a question, and before it became one, I decided to answer it. So you do end up giving the belt. It's not WWE style. WWE style, it is the same belt passed around. They don't order new belts. In boxing, you order new belts. You order new belts because those are the champions. Those are very well the champions. And when you go into title fights and stuff like that, those are the champions' belts. And boxing, they don't take the belts. And, I'll get you guys a more Googled answer to that so that it's a better one for you guys to feel that's easier to understand for some of those who don't. For you guys. So in boxing, a new champion returns a defeated champion's belt as a profound gesture of respect for their career and legacy, an unwritten tradition that honors the champion's sportsmanship. The return of the belts are the defeated champion's personalized trophies, and the new champion will receive their own custom-made belts from the sanctioned bodies, signifying the shift in power. See, everybody was asking, even all these websites say, why did Essential Sports, but why did everybody's kind of explaining their why? And I feel like that's a good thing, but we're the weigh in, the real boxing guys, you know, the insiders. It's because those are the champions' belts, and you always hand them back because the sanctioned body will get new belts for that, for the new person. You know. Now, what is a profound gesture of respect was Crawford doing it himself. A lot of times it'll just be team members. A team member will find another team member and say, "Hey, these are Canelos. These are Canelos." Yeah, we'll get them back to you. Yeah, but that's typically not the case. Crawford wanted to do it himself, so he did do it, which is a good thing. That's a good thing that Crawford did. So just to get you, so just to get you, the boxer who wins the title fight pays a fee to the sanctioned body to receive the belt. So they do. So the boxer pays for new ones. That's a whole. That's the whole reason here. Every boxer pays for their belts. So it's very simple. For some of you that don't understand, it's basically like if you're some of our wrestling guys, it's basically like you're on a travel team and they're putting names on the backs of the singlets and you have a thing, you know, or basically I'll put it better. It's like Fargo. You don't see them use the same singlet every year and pass them along. No, you see them every year. You buy new gear, you buy new singlet. So that is something that you do every year. And in terms of so that could translate over to boxing, it's when you get a belt, you're not going to take the same belt like taking the same singlet. When you go to Fargo, you're going to buy a new belt. So that's how that goes. They buy new belts um, for that, and very well they buy new championships. There is a trend going. They have an undisputed belt physically that they've made that they tried that's kind of looks. I think it looks really nice that they hand out. That they try to instead of handing all 4 or 5 belts. But I think in this terms of this fight, they decided to elect for the 4 or 5 belts to be handed over because there was a changing with all those belts. And that's kind of why the champion gets his belt because he pays for those. The new guy has to pay for his own belts, you know. And for everybody who didn't understand that, that's kind of how it works. In a way, that's how it works. You got to get your own. It's kind of just like anything. If you buy, just like anything, you don't, it's just it goes with anything. Countless products like there are things you just don't pass along the belts. The only way I would see that being something if it was like they won a vacant belt and they didn't really have any, they weren't really custom. But even then, I still think champion orders his own belts. Um, in that situation, so it's just really, that's why, and a lot of people didn't understand that, but that was something I wanted to definitely explain. But nonetheless, I thought Crawford did a great thing. I thought Crawford had a great fight. I thought everything Crawford was doing it right. I think he was doing it well. To go out there, this is what we talked about. When you go out there and you take 6 rounds and you win straight 6 rounds, and now then you can kind of stay on that cruise control. But if you look at it like Crawford didn't stay on the cruise control. Crawford continue to get after everything and to keep going and to keep battling back with Canelo, and that's how he was able to win this fight. It was a very well. I don't say easy fight, but it was a very well interesting fight for Crawford because he was able to just keep one attack after another into Canelo. Left, right, left, right. He was able to do it, and I think that was able to help him grow himself to a victory here. You don't always see that happening quite that often, where you get a guy that goes in there and dominates in such a passionate way, the same way Crawford was able to do. You don't really see stuff like that. You don't, and you do see it from Crawford because he did it during Spence. He did it during so many others. He was able to go there and do stuff like that. But the comicalness is you don't see it as often as many would think in terms of other fights, in terms of other stuff, in terms of fights where you know you don't see as strong of a back and forth like the way we were able to see. I did, and that's why I think that what Canelo did was such a really, what Crawford did was such a really good fight and a really good way to go about it because, you know, he didn't really give up much. He he decided to take everything he was doing and keep it in a way where he was able to win the fight, where he was able to not overexpose himself, you know, where not in a way where he was able to give up too much or too little. It was a way he was able to go round after round and continue to do such a thing where he's able to continue multiple across multiple rounds and continue to take a standpoint where he's able to lead a round, where he's able to get in there, where he's able to jab his way through, where he's able to make sure if there's any exchanges, he goes back and forth with Canelo. He's able to make sure Canelo can't, come through and even find a foot to plant. He's able to keep him, where he can't come in and do anything because he's afraid to come in here and exchange, the counter attack, And I think that was something very well from Terence Crawford that he's able to maximize his counterattack and just to solve another one. A lot of people didn't know Terence Crawford is older than Canelo. That's a whole nother thing, and that's a lot of things going there that they were able to put all that together for Terence Crawford's path to victory, and I think that's a great thing. And that's it was a great event. If you missed it, it was on Netflix. I would definitely try to find your way to see it. It was worth it. But with that being said, we're drawing to the end of an episode. Yet another epi of the weigh-in. The streak continuing this year. And no worries. We're going to end the year out with 2 episodes a week, not missing a day. And that is a surreal moment for the weigh-in that we finally have decided to, do things right. And as this year, there were a lot of great things to my side of the set, being able to just make my set a little better. Obviously, having my belts in the background, my chair that I've had so long. But it isn't over. We're going to continue building, continue making these a little better. I know that some of our goals going into next year is working on our audio. So that's going to be very well. The next tackle for my side of the set is getting good audio going, instead of using computer audio like I have been getting, and using better audio for you guys, so that this is going to be even better, one step at a time. I'm taking care and making things better, so that this is going to become that way, and that we're going to know and love. I already love it. So just we're going to be picking up fans, and that's great. But this is The Weigh-In by Benoit Chestnut and the Poppin' Sebastian Romero. And this is yet another epi. Please like, comment, subscribe. I answer the comments now. I when I see them, I answer them. I answer all your questions emailed very well. We're in a way where we're getting there. And if you don't know, the Weigh-In TikTok account is back. We're bringing back our TikTok account, and we're going to be doing posting to there. Any of our previews for these videos are going to be on TikTok, and then whatever else we do try to whatever else we film for TikTok. So we got our TikTok back up, really great. And that I would go check out. The partner went out there and put a message out to let you know why, to explain the TikTok story. So that's kind of out there. If you haven't, I would go check it out. And this is The Weigh-In. Weigh-In out.
The Weigh-In, where stories ignite.